Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Team Comp Tuesday. This week we have the old classic, the faithful, the kind of standard all 4-star variation of the national team. Now, we're partially doing this week because I've been sick for like the past 8 days or something crazy, so I didn't have a lot of time to pre-farm and plan for the next team. But this is arguably the most important team in Genshin's history, so it's probably important that I make a video on it at some point. And soon we'll have, with new characters coming out and everything, we'll have more and more teams to do. So, still got plenty of ideas and plenty of teams, but this is one that I realized I didn't cover, and I haven't covered a variant of this in a little while either, so figured it was time to show it off, especially since this is arguably the most accessible form of the team. Now, I'm sure most people at this point in time are aware of what this style of team implies, but just in case anybody doesn't know, the national team is essentially the name given by the community to a core for a team consisting of Xingqiu, Xiangling, and Bennett. Basically, it's a core that just revolves around the insane hydro application of Xingqiu mixed with the ability to constantly vaporize that with Xiangling's Pyronado, which both have off-field applications so other units can be used in the meantime to apply buffs and do more damages, while Bennett is mainly here to funnel Xiangling and give a damage increase to the members of the team. Now, this is kind of the standard all 4-star variant. Now, if you go back to the first Team Comp Tuesday, we covered the variation of this team that features Chongyun. But as time went on, Chongyun was slowly phased out and Sucrose was put in, as the VV Shred is insanely good for this team, especially when you can even swirl both elements if you want to, or even just use her as an on-field unit, since this team doesn't actually have a unit that wants to sit on field, so you can constantly swirl with Sucrose's auto attacks if you want, and as well as the EM buffs and stuff like that being very good for the team. Alright, now let's start with the character builds, and we might as well start off with Sucrose, who is just a sub-in for any strong Anemo option here. Sucrose is just the best of the 4 stars for this role, and she fits this team quite well. Weapons, Sac Frags is my personal favorite. I personally like it just because it's more convenient for more grouping, more particle generation, high elemental mastery substats, very good for her EM sharing capabilities. Thrilling Giles of the Dragon Slayer is also a very strong option here. You just need to make sure Pyronado is the one getting the attack buff, and you need to make sure the buff is on Xiangling before casting the Pyronado. Sometimes easier said than done, but a perfectly usable option. I just prefer Sac Frags as it is just slightly more convenient. Artifacts, very simple. Elemental Mastery, Elemental Mastery, Elemental Mastery, with as much EM substats on the other pieces as humanly possible. Talents, basically none of her talents actually matter for this team. You can level up whichever ones, you can level up the Ian Burst if you want, but a lot of her damage, contribution to this team is through Swirl, through the VV4 piece effect, and none of that really relies on her talent, so don't really need to level them up if you want to save the resources. But she's a unit you'll use for basically everything, so you might as well. I personally like to level her up a little bit just to get the extra little bit of damage off her, since she is a unit that is basically can be used in, like, I don't know, probably something like 75% of all teams. I don't have an exact number, but it's a lot of them. Alright, and next up is Xiangling, who's our main damage dealer of the team, despite the fact that she is completely off field and wouldn't necessarily occupy the traditional main carry role. She's more or less the carry of the team. Weapons, I am using Deathmatch for crit rate, but the catch, if you have it free, is generally what I would recommend. 5 stars are fine as well if you have them, any of the 5-star damage spears. But for 90% of people, the catch will be the best option, as it has everything she wants. Elemental Mastery, since she needs a good amount of Elemental Mastery. Plus, the burst damage on the substat is very good for her, and the crit rate, it can help fix her stats with her artifacts without needing super good rolls. Artifacts, 4-piece emblem is the way to go, because again, she wants quite a bit of Elemental Mastery, somewhere near the 200-ish amount. So therefore, emblem is the way to go. Now for artifacts, the key difference to note is if you're going to be using an energy recharge substat weapon, you don't need energy recharge sands. I would go for elemental mastery or attack percent, whichever you have better stats on. But if you do end up using a crit substat weapon, then you probably will end up using an energy recharge sands. Oh, also a spear like Dragon's Bane is also perfectly fine. But the catch is free, so kind of like I kind of recommend using the catch if you have it. If you're not going to be using a crit spear, or if you don't need it for another character. Damage, Goblet, Pyro, obviously, and Helmet is either crit rate or crit damage, depending on need. As you can see, my Zhangling's artifacts are not even very good, and she still hits like a dang truck, because she is just super powerful. Now for talents, the one that mainly matters is Pyronado. This is where 90% of her damage is, or something like that. It's not 90, but it's probably like 75 or something. So this is by far the most important one. You can level up Golba if you want. Golba does do some damage, but Pyronado is basically what Zhangling is all about.
You are not welcome here. Let's end this now.
I'm getting sick of this game.
Now you're testing my patience.
Alright, so next up in the team we have the main Hydro, or the only Hydro applicator, Xingqiu. Very standard build in this setup. Sack Sword is his best by far. If you do not have Sack Sword, going for an energy recharge option such as Festering Desire or Favonius Sword, it would be my personal recommendation. If you don't have any of those, you absolutely have to use something like a crafted weapon. The Inazuma Crafted's kind of alright. The Sumer Crafted weapon, though, does have energy recharge substat, so if you can, I would get that to put on your Xingqiu, if you absolutely need to. Artifacts, this is something where do as I say, not as I do. Emblem of Severed Fate is 100% the way you want to go with Xingqiu. It's like, just like Zhangling, he's going to have quite a bit of energy recharge, upwards of about 200% as well. So get that bonus from there. I just have a better Noblesse and Hydro set, so that's what I'm using. Sands, energy recharge versus attack. If you have really good substats, you can go for attack, or if you rotate super clean, you can go for attack as well, but per se, I'd rather be slightly over energy recharged and be comfortable versus not have enough energy recharge, especially if you're using emblem. It's not going to make that big of a difference if you have to go over. Crit rate or crit damage on the hat, and then hydro damage on your goblet. Talents E and ultimate are both very much worth leveling up, especially if you're going to vaporize the E, because you'd actually vaporize both hits and it does a lot of damage, as well as his ultimate doing a metric ton of damage as well, so both being very worth investing into. Alright, last but certainly not least, our buffer, our Pyro Battery for Zhangling, our healer, the overall best unit in the game, Bennett. Now, weapons, I'm rocking Aquila Favonius. This is for the super high base attack, since his buff is based off base attack. For that reason, you generally just want to rock whatever the highest base attack weapon you have is. The Sumeru Craftable being my go-to recommendation for free-to-play, or anyone who doesn't have the 5-star. Favonius, Sublect Favonius is kind of alright, but low base attack. Definitely the Sumer Craftable does have the max base attack, or very close to the max base attack for a 4-star. So I would just get on in there and get that Sumer Craftable if you do not have access to a 5-star sword with a higher base attack. Artifacts, very easy, Noblesse Oblige. Stats, energy recharge on the sands, pyro damage on the goblet, crit rate. You can build him for straight healing just by building HP. I personally like to just ink out that little bit of damage from him by getting the crit and the pyro on there. Feel free to go full HP if you want, but I would still stick with the energy recharge sands, since you want to be ulting on him as much as humanly possible, and especially since you're going to be ideally catching the pyro particles on Zhangling, not on Bennett. Definitely the more energy recharge, the better. Talents, only thing you really need to worry about is the burst. You will be using the E to funnel Zhangling particles, so if you want to, you can level this up for a little bit extra damage, but the burst is the main thing that needs to be leveled up. Alright, now here we are with the sample rotation. It's relatively simple. You just want to make sure you have your buffs up before you cast Pyronado, and that is more or less all you really care about, and then you just play Circle Impact. So let's start it off. You start off with a Bennett E, and then you can swirl with Sucrose. Get Jingcho's stuff down, drop Pyronado, drop that, and then you can just swap to Sucrose and you actually just start auto-attacking on Sucrose to constantly apply the VV, and also just constantly get swirl triggers for more damage as well. At some point you want to get back through and start funneling Zhangling so that she has energy for the next go around. Alright, we're gonna VV buff again. And there we go. Really rough rotation. Not super great there, but it is a very general idea. There isn't like a set amount of time you want to stay on Sucrose autoing and Eing and stuff like that. Just kind of play it by ear. Make sure your Zhangling has her burst off of cooldown, since that is the lion's share of this team's damage is Pyronado, so making sure it's up as it's off cooldown is very important. Just swap to Bennett, spam some E's, get that energy. Alright, that's going to be it for today's episode of Team Comp Tuesday. I want to thank you for coming out. Sorry if I sound a little bad in this episode. Again, I've been sick for like the past week-ish, something like that. But I think I'm getting over it, so it shouldn't be too bad. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day.